This is a question that something that's kind of jumped out to me, Jack. So even if we look at last year's offense, I felt like there was a lot more explosion in the offense. It seemed like there was a lot more Kyle Shanahan putting it in the hands of his weapons and letting them kind of just, be athletes, be explosive. You saw like some, just get the ball into Brandon Ayuk's hands, just get the ball into Debo's hands, whether it be a jet sweep, whether it be a wide receiver screen, and then let them go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're not seeing that as much this game, right? And I think we have more weapons now than we had, even last season, and definitely better quarterback play. Is Kyle Shanahan limiting the explosiveness of this offense, or do you think there's something else going on?
Uh, this is. I'm going to say a couple things on this one. The first one I think is going to maybe make some people say, "Huh," but one of the reasons I think last year's offense might have been a little bit more explosive without Garoppolo was because the quarterback threw the ball down the field more. Nick Mullins, for all of his faults, did throw the ball, did push the ball down the field to the outside, 10, 15 yards down the field on the outside and so on, more often than Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's part of it there.
He threw it to
When
the other team a lot too.
I understand. That's why I understand that. But
Yeah,
I'm saying
I'm
that
just messing with you, Jack.
yeah, I think that, but I think again, that all goes into why I laugh when there's so much angst about Jimmy Garoppolo. But uh, I don't think he's holding it back. Yesterday's game goes this all. I think this conversation really goes back to what we talked about with the offensive line. Yesterday's game, they weren't able to take the shots down the field that they might be able to do against Green Bay because they were getting too much pressure to really be able to get those guys down there. Because Deebo Samuel, I think, was still the top targeted receiver on the 49ers. Yeah. They just weren't able to get him in space to let them make the plays. My favorite play of the day yesterday for Deebo, other than the deep, the one play that set up the touchdown at the end of the first half, I think it was a jet sweep to the left side, and it's the one if you watch on Twitter, there was you see Trent Williams out there blocking, leading the way,
Yeah.
and he he kicks his guy out to the sideline, and Deebo comes cutting that thing up, and he just puts his shoulder down in the defensive back and runs him over for another 3 yards.
Right.
And I don't know if he gets the first down. I think he might end up a yard short or whatnot. But that was my favorite dang play of the whole game from him because I had to stand up. I told my girlfriend, "Look, watch this guy. Come watch this. This guy's a receiver. Look at the way this guy's running the ball because he's a special talent and." Outside of that, I don't really know. The explosiveness, I think, has to do with the way that the defense was playing him yesterday, and the quarterback was limiting him a little bit with his inability to hit some of these throws.
So here's my thing: like against the Eagles last year, we got to see the most wow play from the 49ers offense all year, which was that just wide receiver screen to Brandon Ayuk, and then he hurdled that guy and ended up scoring a touchdown. Right, we have that playability, but Kyle Shanahan hasn't thrown one wide receiver screen to Brandon Ayuk, and we know what he's capable of. We've seen it, right? He's not playing a guy like Trey Sermon, even though Trey Sermon got hurt. Mm-hmm. You saw the explosiveness from that one run where he gained 8 yards, and it's like, how are these guys sitting on our bench when our offense is struggling to move the ball down the field? These aren't plays where you need to have, your offensive line keep guys back. These are the dink and dunk type plays, but we're not putting it in the hands of these weapons that we have. That's why I'm asking: is Kyle Shanahan doing this on purpose, or what do you think? What do you think that is?
No, I understand your question, and the one thing that I would say, like for example, let's take the Sermon play for example, right? The Sermon play comes in the fourth quarter. The defense wasn't playing as good at that point. The 49ers had softened them up. By the time Sermon finally got into the game, the 49ers running game had started to get going. It's the same thing with JaMycal Hasty. JaMycal Hasty finally got into the game when the run game was finally getting. Hasty's big run was 21 yards. There was nobody within 3 yards of him until he got down to where he was getting tackled because it was blocked up so well. He's running that ball through just follow in the blocks. It was wide open when you watch the replay, especially from the end zone. That thing was blocked up beautiful, and I think it's a similar situation with Sermon. He looks good because compared to Mitchell, because by that point in the game, everything started to open up. Because you know one of the things when you're playing on defense and you're down 14-3 that you're going to do is you're going to try to make plays. Those guys were frustrated as hell yesterday, and you could see
Right.
that in the fourth quarter with Philadelphia. Those guys were frustrated. They didn't want to be on the field anymore because they were stuck on the field a lot in the second half of the game, uh, and they didn't want to be out there. And that's what led to the last field goal for the Flyers, why they got up 17-3 and everything. So I mean, it's just, is he holding him back? And going back to your question, is he limiting him? I don't know if it's Kyle Shanahan as much as is the quarterback.
Yeah, but even with this quarterback, we've seen a much more explosive version of this offense, and that's the reason why I'm thinking is let me like a wide receiver screen fits everything that you're talking about. This offense was doing, and you have guys like Debo, obviously, who is getting the ball. Even a guy like Kittle doing a tight end screen, or a guy like Brandon Ayuk, they're just not being utilized. Like and I don't know. I want to push back because I think that's kind of like a cop out answer that Trey Sermon looked that way because the defense was beat up. Trey Sermon could be that way even when the defense isn't being beat up. What I'm saying is there's a talent like that that's not being utilized, right? Even if it was a product of maybe a tired defense, still that ability is on our bench, not being used. Brandon Ayuk hurdling over defenders and being able to score touchdowns is sitting on our bench, not being utilized, right? We
Yeah,
saw Brandon Ayuk make an unbelievable catch that kind of bailed out a throw from Jimmy that was in the right place, but maybe a little bit high. And Brandon Ayuk just went out and caught that ball. For that to be only the two attempts, that the second attempt that he got, to me is kind of like, what is going on? Like, Kyle Shanahan is so much of a creative guy to not be utilizing these weapons in my mind. I don't know. I just think that to me it's baffling because I understand Nick Mullins is able to throw the ball down the field more, but I don't even think of those as the explosive plays. I'm talking about the Yak Boys, and they tried to use it so much in the telecast against the Eagles. Like they were kept calling the Yak Boys, Yak Boys, but we never saw Kittle get the ball. We never saw Ayuk get the ball. It was just a Yak boy, which was Debo, and nobody else is getting it. So I'm just like wondering what is that? Like why is that? Why aren't we seeing more from these guys that are just supreme talents in my book, at least?
Kittle was the second. There was Ayuk, I think, had 8 targets. Hasty had 5, and Kittle had 4. Those were your top 3.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
four to one of the highest paid tight end to me is, you're not utilizing them as much as you could.
but they were keeping him in the block. I think was part of it.
Yeah, you're
You know,
absolutely,
and,
absolutely. They
and
were.
they're having to keep him. So I mean, that's why I'm saying it kind of goes back to the defense and what they were having to do. The Sermon deal, it might sound like a cop out, but here's the deal with Sermon and the running game and everything. I don't think that Sermon makes that explosive play in the first half. I just don't. It
Mhm.
wasn't there. It wasn't there for the 49ers in the first half. In the first half, everything was clogged up. Even on the tosses that they were getting when they were, it seemed like the way that the 49ers offense was going in the first half when they gained 3 or 4 yards on a toss, it seemed like a big play. At least that's the way it
So
felt like to
let's
me.
take Sermon because we haven't seen him in the NFL be explosive. Are you telling me a jet sweep to Brandon Ayuk won't do something good? Are you telling me a wide receiver screen to Brandon Ayuk won't be able to gain 5 to 10 yards?
It might be able to. They instead of using Ayuk, they did it to Juwan Jennings, and I think he gained like 8 or something like that, right?
You mean that? I don't know. I don't remember that play offhand. I just remember the touchdown to Juwan Jennings. But
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Ayuk is. I don't know. I really wish they would tell us the truth about what's going on with Ayuk because that is a mystery to me. He is way too much of a talent to be targeted 2 times in a game, in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you that he should be getting more targets. That was it. Was it only 2 times? He only had one catch and the one ball that was overthrown. That was it. It
Yeah,
wasn't 3. Okay.
yeah, that was the two. At least that I remember in my
Yeah.
head, like keeping
Well,
track of.
I know that he was. I know that he was targeted one less time than Trent Sherfield yesterday.
Yeah, man. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I wonder if Kyle Shanahan. I do think that obviously the defense does clearly play a role, but I also think that there's things that we saw from Kyle Shanahan in previous games with the same quarterback that he was able to still scheme up some explosive plays and get the balls into his playmakers' hands a little bit more than I've seen in these first 2 weeks. But maybe I don't know. Maybe he's just building into it, right? He's also in the second game of his season as well. So
I think you're. I think there's definitely things to look at, and he's not perfect, that's for sure, with his play calling and the way that he does it. I think yesterday he managed the game really well because of all the problems that they were having to kind of limit themselves with what they were doing and not try to force things down the field. Uh,
mm-hmm.
he kind of played to his defense a little bit, with some of what they
Yeah.
were doing. So, no.
Harold Murillo, this is why you are my favorite right now. I think it is Kyle who's limiting the offensive play. Anybody who agrees with me will always get on the show because I need some validation in my life.
There you go.